Hello and welcome to Console Shock Retro Mod Gaming Chat with me, Trev, and Stu.
Hi, Stu. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Stu. Say hello to yourself.
Yeah, Stuart.
Oh, you're saying your name, yeah.
Yeah,
you don't like your name being said, do you? What don't you full name?
No, you have a habit of saying my whole name.
Does it ever... What's happened, though? Like, nothing's happened. No one gives a shit about this podcast.
Well, saying that, though, when I went away, my credit card was cloned and someone else used it. I'm not blaming you, Trev.
Really?
I'm not blaming you.
But you live in
I think it's because
right,
on about the 20th episode you said my full name.
Where is it you live at the moment? Actually, no, I shouldn't say where you live because that's really specific, isn't it?
I live in London.
You've only got
I live in London.
Stuart London, and it will come up with...
my name's Stuart. I live in London.
Stuart from YouTube, put that in Google, and then bang, you're going to get doxed to to buggery.
And I was born in the 80s. That's all you get in.
That's too much already, to be honest, mate.
I think so.
They can narrow down your favourite video games and everything if they study in depth every single episode. Which I don't recommend, to be honest, because our early ones are awful. And probably a later one.
They're awful as well. I wanted to congratulate you on something.
What?
For 10 years with your lovely partner. It was spammed all over my Facebook. Everywhere was a picture of you and your partner, who I'm not going to name.
Oh my girlfriend, yeah. I think I've probably named her multiple times on this podcast. I name a lot of people, apparently. It's like just really setting up doxing sort of events. 10 years, not too far behind yourself, Stu, you monogamous chap.
Exactly.
That you are. What are you on now? 11?
15 years, I think.
15. And are you married?
No.
No
way.
10 grand for a wedding. How many that's Neo Geo games, Mega Drive.
Exactly. I'm too cool to be married. Yeah, me.
It's a bit passé now, isn't it? This is 2020. Exactly. 2020, Jesus. It's gone quick, isn't it?
2020.
We've been doing this now for... we're only on episode 60 because, yes, we obviously say we're going to do one every 2 weeks, and we've said that loads of times. We're worse than, Angry Joe in keeping to a schedule.
I think we should do an actual video on YouTube and promising that we're going to do a podcast every week, and then we're going to do an extra one, and then just not even attempt to do them. I think that is the right way.
Yeah, to be honest, our first, you know when our first one was? 17th of September 2014. That was our first one,
14?
2014. Although technically it's 2013, isn't it? Because we had our sort of 2 episodes. Was it 3 episodes? 5
the video ones.
The video ones.
Ow.
They were in 2013, they were, of course.
Oh my god.
Jesus, we're going to hit we're not too far from we're close to 10 years now.
I think people are going to be calling us the Sky at Night.
Yeah.
So we've been going for so long.
We're getting there. Just think, when you were in the shop then, and that shop's obviously, PlayNation Games has moved a couple of times, hasn't it, since then?
It has, yeah.
A lot has changed.
It's quite funny, actually. I was sort of thinking the other day, it's been so long that we're not getting messages on our Facebook page going, when's the next episode?
We've got our mate though that we have got one of our biggest fans.
You know who you are. I was going to say his name then, but we love all the messages. Keep them coming.
We love it.
We can do it when we can.
please tell everybody to sort of that you know.
Exactly, and we're glad you enjoyed them.
Although a few people, we had a bit of a flare up with the last episode about the good old 3DO. You were telling me.
Did we?
You said on downloads, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah,
that really
worked. I remember telling you about that 2 minutes ago, just before we started. The last episode. I don't know. It's a little bit odd because I'm looking at the analytics now, and I'm not going to say any numbers because I don't want to show off or anything. Yeah. But we usually, when we upload the podcast, we usually get a sort of huge spike for that day and the day after because we're sharing them around.
Is this from iTunes specific? Oh, it's just downloads in general, isn't it?
It's a download. So whoever sort of picks up the thread.
Because iTunes don't host these, do they? You give them basically. You can use some tips, everybody, if you ever want to do this. You just upload it to a file server, and iTunes just basically grab the URL, isn't it, and filter it out.
So you have to have a website. So we've got a website, consoleshock.net. It's just where I put the podcasts on. And then iTunes directs will look like every hour on that website, and if there's a new podcast, it will then put it onto its servers, or just direct people to it. So that's what it's basically doing
on the internet.
But talking about analytics, it was sort of quite funny. It was like 5 days ago, and we did the last podcast back in November. We got quite a high spike in numbers for that episode. So I'm thinking suddenly, someone wants to know information about the 3DO, maybe.
A lot of people got it for Christmas, or we're getting it for Christmas, I guess. So that kind of explains it, right?
That could be a reason, yeah. That could be a reason. Yeah.
Well, we're a retro gaming podcast, so obviously at the start of the episode we've got to go through the standard stuff. So, Stu, what events are we going to? What retro gaming events?
Right. Okay. First off, we're going to the Romford Gaming Show. That I believe is on the 10th of February. We're going to the Romford Gaming Show. We'll be there. We're doing a panel. We're doing a panel at the Romford Gaming Show, and that's on the 10th of February. I believe that's a Friday. We're going to be doing the 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. panel on that day. And then in March, we're going to be doing the Skegness Expo.
I thought it was Clacton on Sea.
No, Skegness. If you read the emails, Trev, it's Skegness Expo. We're doing that one, and we're going to be doing basically speed running computer games. So if you want to see us do some speed running of computer games, we're thinking about speed running World of Warcraft.
That's a good one, yeah. Championship
so that one
Manager
is in March, and Championship Manager.
Speed run. What are you laughing for?
Speed running Championship Manager. That is that's a good one actually to do.
So what Stu is getting at?
Yeah,
I don't think we are going to any events because these are.
Do you know what? We did want to go to.
There was one real one, yes.
There was one real one, but I'm away on holiday when the one real one is on, and we were just going to go there and say it was basically the gaming trading market,
retro gaming market. Yeah,
that's the one. How could I get those words mixed up? In London. So I was thinking, we'll go there. And you mentioned it to me, but we were just going to say, okay, well, if you go there, if you see us, I've
been threatening for a while.
Say hello in a non-threatening way, or you could threaten us.
Well, it's a bunch of retro gaming nerds, isn't it? So it's kind of a bit touch and go, isn't it, for that sort of stuff? London Gaming Market, literally what it's called.
I'm sure we don't really advertise actually what we look like. So
no, that's the last thing we'd want to
do. So I'm sure people would actually they wouldn't be sure who we were to anyway.
You never actually
so we
did
were
that,
going to go there.
Did you? You never did that. The shop Play Nation never did that. Did they go gaming market? Or did you?
No, we looked into it, but we never did it. So
fair enough.
Yeah. But we were going to go there, but I was away on holiday. So anyway, what were you saying, Trevor?
The first retro gaming podcast thing, we aren't going to any events. Second one, where can you donate to our Patreon?
Oh yeah. Right. It's patreon.com/Metal Jesus Rocks. That's so if you donate to that, we are committed to doing 17 podcasts a month. If we get over $4,000 a month.
And that's a big jump from doing about that per year. So
it's patreon.com/Metal Jesus Rocks.
Metal, or if it's the...
And we'll put it in the description.
Spanish version of him as well, Metal Jesus Rocks.
Metal Jesus Rocks.
Presumably there's a Patreon here.
I like Metal Jesus. Why am I giving him?
Why are you getting people to give him money?
Yeah. To be honest with you, if anyone comes here and goes to his Patreon, I'm here because of Console Shock. Oh, I love the podcast. Every 3 months they do an episode. Oh, they're brilliant, those guys.
there's a channel called
He's a tenner. He's a tenner. I can't wait for all the extra episodes. Well, that'd be quite funny.
That'd be funny, yeah. If it actually happens. Well, you feel free to donate to me. I'm not going to stop you. There's actually a retro gaming channel called Classic Gaming Quarterly. Now he posts a video like twice a month.
Yeah.
So he's not quarterly. In fact, we should have that title, if anything. Because we're way closer to posting one video every 3 months than he is.
Console Shock Quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah. We literally bi-monthly. Because Stu is all about buy. But anyway, the last thing. So we don't have a Patreon, so we're doing something wrong here. And what about our sponsors, Stu? Just give them a shout out for us.
Yeah, well, we've been sponsored by Rook's Butchers. You can find them on the High Street.
And where?
Well, they're in Dover, they're in Deal, Faversham, Folkestone. So all over the Kent market towns, you can find Rook's Butchers. And, we're sponsored by them. So go to them and get your meat sorted.
So as you might have guessed, we aren't sponsored by a butcher's. That would be interesting. I don't think anybody's done that really in the sort of retro gaming YouTube realm. There's not really any it's the usual stuff, isn't it? Dollar Shave Club and Skillshare, like NordVPN. All the ones that will give away your personal data. That's probably good enough. Your butchers probably wouldn't give away your personal data, so that's going to get a spot. Maybe we should, for real, get a butcher's as a sponsor. That's sure. Obviously, that'll put off the vegan people. Because
I'm not really a fan of vegans, to be honest. So I'd rather if they didn't listen.
Really, you're not a fan of vegans?
No, God.
You're all for killing the old.
Well, no, I don't mind vegans. It's when vegans give their cats a vegan diet and then the poor cats go blind. It's just not fair on the cats.
Yeah,
it's not fair on the cats.
It's not. The cats need big old bits of meat inside them, I'm afraid.
Exactly.
So we're not doing any of this podcasting stuff, right? We've got to get those 3 pillars nailed down.
Do you know what? People have read the title of this podcast and they've
hit that 30-second button, skip button on iTunes.
When are these idiots actually going to talk about what was in the title, which I'm not going to reveal?
To be honest, we've spent less time doing that than we have if we actually did have real sponsors. We'd still be talking about Dollar Shave Club at this point.
Yeah, Dollar Shave Club.
Use our special URL. Yeah, Harry's. Yeah, it's weird how they all float around, isn't it? Or Satisfy Gaming. Get your Nintendo Switch ball shaver attachment or something. So I don't think there is one of them. But
Rich from Review Tech USA, he does that one. Yes, yeah.
Or review. People in the comments are going to slaughter me. Tech USA, which I really like him. But I do. I can get through a video where he doesn't mention someone saying something in the comments because he says something. That would be great.
And honestly, I do like him. I like what he talks about. But stop talking about gherkins or cucumbers.
He's got Zania, isn't he?
And hitting them in your face. It's your content will be just as good if you didn't have the gherkin being smashed in your face.
When it was just in playing a game or doing the audio over the top of that, that was probably my favourite kind of format that he had.
I don't mind seeing him. I think it actually looks a little bit more professional.
Yeah.
And what if it's game footage or it's him? I don't mind, but I think he's sort of sticking to the the camera on him. I think that works better.
I think him doing all the zany stuff. Okay, we've gone from coming up with fictional sponsors and everything to talking about Review Tech USA. But I think the reason why he the zany sort of cucumber stuff, I think that's just him kind of trying to cater to the comments, which are a little bit. If you read the comments, most of them are just stupid comments and zany jokes and in jokes that no one else will get. Probably most YouTube comment sections are like that. But Uber Rich's, well, actually, no, because if you go into like Pat the Nez Punk on his pods,
thank God, I haven't seen anything from. I think I've actually, I certainly don't subscribe to him anymore. But I just found him. People are probably saying the same about me now, but his opinions were a little bit. Each other, I think, put opinions for the sake of it.
He's a bit like Marmite, isn't he?
Yeah.
I never watch his like funny, like episodic, like angry video game nerd rip-off type stuff. Which I think is where he got his popularity. Yeah. Where he just a silly review of a game with lots of funny little jokes and he gets into funny scrapes and adventures and stuff. Never watched any of that. The only thing that I watch is his CU podcast. Because obviously, probably just like me, you thought, oh my God, Pat is doing a podcast about the Amiga magazine from the 90s, See You Amiga. But I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Don't know why you're laughing, Stu. It's a perfectly reasonable thing for someone to do.
No, obviously.
It wasn't about that. It would have been a hell of a turn for an American that's, basically if you're an American, it's the 80s equals Nintendo. Pretty much, isn't it? You get with a dash of Sega occasionally, but it's mostly 80s. It equals Nintendo, or the Commodore 64. I read there was a really
Apple
funny
II. Everyone in America had an Apple II.
Didn't they? Yeah, us with our silly little bloody BBC Micros. They were just rocking the old Apple II. The funniest comment I saw recently, that's not really that funny, but it just tickled me for some reason, was there's a Commodore group on Facebook, and someone just set up they posted a picture of them playing their Commodore 64 in 1991.
Yeah.
And the 8-bit guy commented and said, 1991, that's a bit after the life of the Commodore 64, isn't it? And then like underneath that you got a huge lecture of 50 people all saying, well, in the US probably, but in the UK, in Europe, in all loads of European countries, it was still a valid platform in 91. Our last Commodore 64 magazine carried on till 1995, I think, or 6.
Yeah.
Commodore format. And it was like, oh, really? I didn't know that. And I was just like, dude, you love the Commodore 64. You should know this stuff.
Yeah.
It's really.
I'm gonna slate him now. I do like the 8-bit guy, but do you know when sometimes you're looking at a YouTube channel, and then you go, oh God, I really like him. He seems like a really nice guy, and actually he genuinely is. But I think he gets a little bit. He was on another podcast, and I don't think he actually watches that many other sort of YouTube.
I don't think so.
No. But then for some reason I thought, I really like watching his stuff. I'll go and watch some of his early stuff. So you do that thing.
I think I know where you're going here.
Yeah, and you click on the button to say, I want to see the oldest videos first.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a scroll down, and something like his 3rd or 4th video was how to conceal a gun when you're carrying around Texas.
I remember you showed me that, and I was like, what the?
And he's a review of his concealed gun belt, and for me, I mean, to see a gun out in the wild, let's say in the UK, I would get like, oh my God, that guy's got a gun! Quick, gun!
And he's so blasé about it.
Oh, call the police! Yeah, that guy's got a gun. Everyone, God, what's going on? He's a terrorist. I think I'd run a mile. I genuinely would.
Yeah.
And he's a really nice, softly spoken family guy reviewing the gun belt and explaining it. And it's not ironically.
No, he's like dry as totally deadpan, totally sincere, and it's about 20 minutes long. You know, and it's like crazy. And obviously, like I get it. He's from Texas. So that's
you know, and people obviously are different in, and it's our reaction to, God, that's what they do in America. And I've been to America a couple of times, and I'm sure I've walked past people who have been concealed holding a gun or had a gun in their, you know, their bag, or I don't know where you carry your gun, but I'm sure plenty of people who had, and sometimes. I mean, you know, if you bump into someone in the street, you know, you don't want to antagonize someone so they shoot you. But
it's weird, isn't it? And he's a funny one because he's got quite a sort of not deadpan, but kind of a dry way of presenting things. But it's also
it's interesting though. He's
very blunt. He's extremely blunt. And I think like there's an episode where it might be like the day in the life of me when I'm not doing like YouTube things, and he's talking. He goes through like how he gets tons of emails, and it was something along the lines of, so it literally said like this, like with loads of size and stuff. It might be on another video, but then it's like, so a lot of people ask me, can I appear on their podcast or whatever? So yeah, for us, this is the shit that we do. Can I appear on your podcast? I'm like, you know, really, unless you've got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, I'm not going to do it. He just says this in one of his videos. And it's
do you know what? Good for him.
Exactly. Yeah,
he's not giving anyone any bollocks. He's not going out there going, "Oh yeah, I might do it. I don't know." He's going, "No, not unless you're the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm not doing it."
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. So don't even bother.
I'm not interested.
Shut up, basically. And I thought that was, I don't know why, I just thought, probably because obviously we have to, in our, you know, we're a tiny channel, and we have to scrabble around for guests. And, you know, there are people that are not, and there are people that will look at how many subscribers you've got, and they'll see it as an opportunity to, and not being funny, you know, we obviously try and, we want to get people in that people will know about, because one, it will help promote our channel, because we want to be able to do this, and you know,
if you do want to be a guest on the show, please direct message us on one of our social media channels.
On the off, there's no one's fucking gonna do that based on what you just said, Stu. If someone does this, I will be amazed.
You never know. I'll tell you what, the first person to message us is guaranteed to be our next guest.
Yeah, we could really pull some strings to get that done on this, you know.
Yeah,
we can,
maybe not. Actually, we've probably got our next guest sorted. Actually, so probably our next guest after that one. And
it doesn't help that we're in London, because retro gaming wise, it's like there's fuck all.
It's a desert.
To be honest, like, okay, Croydon, you know, where you were obviously based, where PlayStation Games is, the best retro gaming shop in London. Fact,
100%.
Is pretty good. You've got obviously, you know, CEX. So what you like about CEX, they sell retro games. Okay, obviously PlayStation Games, that's where you should go. But there's a couple of other. There's one other dotted around. There's one around the corner from PlayStation Games that sells retro games. And you've got Heart of Gaming, which is that amazing. We've talked about it before. Arcade that has retro arcade machines in it, and now actually shares the same space as PlayStation Games. Which is frigging cool. But generally, London is rubbish. There was Game Focus on. Gone. And that's it, really. We don't have really any events that are down here.
There's one in. I went to one in Romford. Is that London?
It's Essex.
Oh,
close. Okay. It's pretty close, to be fair, but yeah.
Yeah, and that was. I went there actually. There are loads of good stuff. I want to say prices felt a little bit high. Yeah, maybe, or maybe it was lots of good stuff, but actually nothing I really wanted, so I couldn't really sort of go, okay, well, I'll buy that on a whim.
Nothing will beat PlayStation Games. I bought Winning 11-6 for 50p from you guys. People were charging 11 quid on eBay for it. So
were they? Oh, there you go.
They were. God knows why. It's not worth bloody 11 quid for it. Yeah. Good old Malcolm. Hey, Malcolm.
Talking about Malcolm.
You sorted me out with that.
Update on Malcolm.
Do it.
He has now got Snatcher, the UK version for the Mega CD.
Lucky git.
Yeah.
I did splash out on one collector sort of thing recently.
Yeah.
I got Street Fighter Collection for the Sega Saturn.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's not a cheap game, unfortunately. Although I might be stitching myself up by saying this, but the CEX local to where I work in Bayswater. So I'm now probably going to get myself doxxed because they know they probably work out where I work.
Yeah,
If I talk any more about it, there's this Mega Drive game I've been after for a while, True Lies. Literally the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, the game of that film. It's a semi-rare game. You don't see many copies in the wild. Goes for maybe 50, 60, 70 quid on eBay. This CEX has 2. And another game, Masters of Combat for the Master System, which is a £200 game. They have 2 of that as well. Can you believe that shit? It's got 4 copies of a really rare, bunch of rare Segas. And they've got another PlayStation game, Rapid Reload, which is about 100 quid, sometimes more. They've got that. So it's just outrageous what they have. So don't buy any of that stuff. I want to buy it.
Is that all in that one shop?
Yeah, they've got all that junk in there. It's great. They're not really brilliant generally for retro. It's just they just happen to have in their little. You've been in CEX. You know they keep the retro stuff in its own little bit. It's not out on like the gondolas where all the other games, 360 and PS3 and PS4 and all that stuff. It's in the window sort of cabinets. They keep them in there, and there's just
the problem with that. Sometimes you're looking at it and you're going, "Oh, that game! They put it sideways. I wonder how much it is."
Yeah, and also you don't know if it's got the manual or anything, so you got to look really nerdy and anal retentive and be like, "Can I have a look at that game? I want to see if there's a manual."
Yeah,
like,
I saw a game in there. I think it's actually SSX3 from CEX. That was easy to say. And I said to the guy, "Oh, can I get SXX3 on the Xbox?"
That was in the window.
It was, it was in the cabinet. And the guy was, what? What are you talking about?
So it was some 20-year-old who was just doing.
Yeah, I absolutely no clue what I was talking about. I said, and he said, "Oh, can you show me where it is?" I go, "Oh, is that one there?" He said, "Oh, right. Oh, this is what you asked for." Yeah.
So I do kind of feel embarrassed when I do. I've done that in CEX.
Yeah, it's actually quite good to look on your phone if you see a game and look on your phone to see what the price is of that game.
Yeah,
and then you might be like, "Oh, well, actually, that's quite a good price," or "Oh no, I'll leave that one."
That's probably one advantage we have in London is the fact that it's so condensed, like the city, and the transport links are good. You're within spitting distance of several, unless you're in the most remote part of London, like far extreme southeast or west or whatever. You could potentially have a good, 5 or 6 within spitting distance. And I have like a good thing that I've done before is in central London. There's about 3 that you can do about an hour round trip around and get through all 3 of them. There's like the Tottenham Court Road one. It's like a Goode Street one. There's like another one. You can walk around all of them, and you've got about 3 or 4 that you could just do a circuit with in central London, and you could pick up a bunch of games. I've done that before in like the summertime when it's nice to go and it's not Christmas or anything. It's not busy. And you could probably plan it, can't you? You could just be like, look at the app, and you can see. The great thing about their website is you can see where they've got, and also it's better than. Because I don't know if you've bought a lot of retro games from them just online, but it is a gamble if you're going to get something in a decent condition, because they don't have really many levels that they specify in terms of the quality. I
mean, in all honesty, that's the same as eBay or actually the same as Amazon. If you're to buy a retro game on there, you might go, "Oh, that's a good price." Oh, yeah, the buyer's put a little note on there saying it's great condition, comes with instructions, and then it doesn't, and it's not a great condition.
Well, I guess but you could be careful, can't you? You can look at the photos, and if someone's just put a generic photo up, you'll just ignore it. I guess.
But that's true. But then, they could always be hiding a really scratched disc, or they could be hiding. a multitude of things, maybe.
Missing manual, the inlay,
missing manual, and
you
know, things like that, and you know, the box is all right on one side, but then the dog's chewed the other side, or something, and
it's a gamble a lot of. So basically, what we're saying is anything you buy, retro gaming particularly, always is better to go and see the stuff and go to a physical place so you can pick them up and see them. But that does bring me on to.
Oh, I was going to mention. If you go to the retro gaming, we've got a deal with the retro gaming fair in London that's coming up in March. If you mention Console Shock at the gate when you go in, you get in for free entry. If you mention Console Shock,
the thing that has for free entry already.
No, it is actually £2 to get in. I think it's £2 or £4 or something.
Are we talking about the London gaming market?
The London gaming market, yeah. You can get in for free if you mention Console Shock.
We're so good at faking sponsors that we can't even correctly name the one that we're trying to make you think that we've got.
I know, and then you contradict me halfway through.
Exactly, yeah.
No, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Don't do that.
So professional, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why.
Click the link in the description.
Yeah. Put the use our URL / Norfolk and Chance at the end. Yeah, I'll get you 10% off. Anyway, so buying games. Talking of markets and your former shop.
Yeah.
What would you say, with obviously having worked in play and being the owner of PlayStation Games for many years? Yeah. Out of when we look at sort of the 16-bit era, so obviously that's Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you say you would sell the most of out of those two?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I think it would actually probably be slightly more Mega Drive by, how do you put it? Mega Drive by volume, but more SNES by value.
Is that because SNES games just cost more generally? Because obviously a mint copy is more expensive because of the cardboard box.
I think it's partly down to that. It's partly down to things like people. They want to collect all the iconic sort of Nintendo games, and So I'll say that was the mix. So we sold more Mega Drive games. Units, but then more Super Nintendo by value.
So, when we talk about Mega Drive versus Super Nintendo, I think from a UK perspective, I think it's clear that the Mega Drive beat the Super Nintendo in the UK. Not saying it destroyed it or anything, and nothing like that, but it beat it. Probably in the same manner that perhaps probably the closest modern sort of analogous console war, I would say, is the Xbox 360 versus the PS3. Because I would say the Mega Drive got that head start of, we didn't get the Super Nintendo until April 1992.
Yeah.
The Mega Drive came out here in November 90 or September 90. So it had a year and a half head start. Just like the Xbox 360. I mean, it's nearly identical, actually. Like the 360 came out, was it November 2005?
I would argue that the 360 was slightly more powerful.
In some ways, yes.
No blast processing.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it was better.
It had thousands of blast processing by then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what annoys me when people reference that as that being the worldwide campaign for the Mega Drive, because it was just America where they did that. We had really cool ads for the Mega Drive in the UK that didn't do any of that. I remember the Sega Master System ads from it. Could this have been literally 1989, 90, where it was a computer generated, a CG graphic TV with a face saying, "Do me a favor, plug me into a Sega."
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and that was for the Master System, because the Mega Drive hadn't come out by then. But the Master System was a popular console. It was about the only popular console, because everybody was mostly playing Amigas and Sinclairs and all that sort of stuff. But then I remember when you hit the 90s, and probably 91, 92, 93, we had those awesome Sega Pirate TV ads. and like the Cyber Razor cut. Do you remember that ad?
When you said Cyber Razor cut, it does bring back memories, but I can't. I don't know.
It was a thing where this dude went into sort of a good-looking, dude, walks into like a barber shop. He sits down and he says, "I'd like a Cyber Razor cut." And then the barber, who looks quite zany and a bit like a Frankenstein, like Dr. Frankenstein character, then goes away and straps him into a seat. And while he's getting his Cyber Razor cut, he plays like Mega Drive games and does that 90s thing of just cycling through a ton of Mega Drive games with a cool sounding voiceover. Like, the Mega Drive has over 100 games. Can you take them all on? And this dude is playing these games while he's getting a Cyber Razor cut. But it turns out a Cyber Razor cut is turning you into a robot. It isn't actually a haircut.
Oh.
So
what was the one where they did... for Sega, it takes ages or something.
To be this good takes ages. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of around the same time, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was the slogan at the end of those Cyber Razor cut and all the different ads that were of that same kind of era. It was like, and they had this like, they tried to make it like it was like your TV was getting taken over for 30 seconds by a rogue pirate TV station that was then showing Mega Drive adverts. It was called like Sega Pirate TV. So it'd be lots of like flickering snow effects to show that it was kind of forcing its way into the TV schedule. It was just cool. I don't really remember Super Nintendo ads until the Rik Mayall ones.
Yeah, I think the Super Nintendo ones, from my memory. Now, I think we've talked about before, and I don't like to say this, but I'm a little bit more of a Super Nintendo sort of fan.
You shouldn't like to say that, Stu. You shouldn't.
No, I feel bad, but the Super Nintendo adverts, they were a little bit more. This is Super Mario All Stars.
They're more about the game, I think.
They're actually more about the game,
yeah,
rather than here's a really catchy slogan or. They would show the game, and I think that always sort of appealed to me, because in those days you couldn't watch YouTube and go, okay, yeah, I want to get that game. How can I tell if it's a good game or not? Well, it'll be good because I watched that 20-second advert and it looked good. That's what you really had to go on. Obviously you can read magazines and things like that, but there wasn't, the TV shows. There were TV shows, but I think few and far between.
Yeah, I think I remember with I don't really remember Super Nintendo adverts. I don't remember them on launch really. My first memory of the Super Nintendo, I don't even recall, because I probably got properly into video games around 1991 when I first played a Commodore 64. And for over the course of the next year...
That's a bit late, wasn't it? 91?
It was, yeah. Well,
you played a Commodore 64 in 91?
I don't tell 8-bit guy.
Oh, man. What a loser.
Yeah.
Then I had a PC. I had an Apple Mac 2, I did by then.
It was already, even that was old then.
Yeah.
So over the sort of subsequent year, after that was when I became aware that there's different consoles, and there's a Nintendo and a Sega and all that stuff. And I think my first memories of the SNES, I was already kind of into games now, full time into games. And I remember there was this kids, this thing was on BBC, a Saturday morning TV show, not like Live and Kicking or anything like that. It was a different one. It was called Parallel 5 or something. And
I remember that name.
Yeah. I remember it had a sheep on it. They always had a puppet character on all these things, like Gordon the Gopher and all that. There was one of them was a sheep. And on Parallel 5, I need to look.
I can hear you typing. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to look this up. I swear it was on BBC. It was like it was a kids' TV show, and they had let's check out they didn't really do video game segments, but they did it on this particular episode one Saturday morning, because the Super Nintendo had just come out, so I guess it would have been about April '92, and I remember they showed F-Zero. And it did look really cool. It did look like something that you couldn't really do on the Mega Drive, although later on you kind of could. We had like Street Racer, didn't you, on the Mega Drive and stuff, which basically was the sort of simulated that Mode 7 effect. But I don't remember seeing lots of adverts and marketing for the Super Nintendo until like 1993. I kind of feel like when that Mario All-Stars pack came out, that was when they really. I know you had Street Fighter 2 was the was a big thing, but I seem to remember that just being from magazines and people talking about it, as opposed to them like bombarding the TV with adverts for it.
Yeah, it's for me sort of like Street Fighter 2 and things. It almost feels like sort of word of mouth. Is you saw Street Fighter 2 in the arcade, and then, oh wow, you can play it at home. Oh, this is amazing. And yeah, that's how it sort of felt. I never remember. In fact, it was. I feel that a lot of these adverts, I can't remember seeing them a lot. They're not like something like, oh, there's an old advert for Purcell they're always playing.
Yeah.
It was something like maybe when you're watching kids TV or Channel 4 around 6 o'clock or something, that's when they might show something that was sort of related to the sort of video games. So you really didn't see them that often.
Yeah, and I suppose it wasn't so much the adverts, as I say. I don't recall seeing a lot of like Super Nintendo stuff. But there was loads of Sega stuff. It was probably from like Games Master and Bad Influence that people were saying it's because Street Fighter 2, it looks amazing. And I remember being really excited and kind of shocked at the same time when I used to get Sonic the comic, which was literally a Sonic the Hedgehog comic. It was actually quite good, and a lot of people sort of fondly remember it, and it's quite collectible these days. It was basically an official licensed Sega comic. It had obviously a Sonic the Hedgehog bit in it. There was like a Streets of Rage comic inside it, or story inside it, a Golden Axe, a Shinobi. It was just cool. It was just like basically Mega Drive games, comics of Mega Drive games collected into a Sonic the Comic issue. And that was the first time that I saw they were porting Street Fighter 2 to the Mega Drive. And it had screenshots in it. And it looked the same as like the Super Nintendo, because the way people were talking about the Super Nintendo, it was almost like another generation. And then I was realised, wow, there's like the Mega Drive is still frigging good. And in there, they also had in that same issue. This might have been like the first issue of Sonic the Comic, actually. That's probably why I remember it. They also showed the Mega CD 2 and the Mega Drive 2, which would have been the Japanese versions then. And I was like, bloody hell, that's quick. Because like the Mega CD had only been out for like a couple of months. This would have been in some point in '93, and they were already making a Mega CD 2. And I thought, wow, even as a 10-year-old kid, that didn't ring true to me. Yeah,
because well, obviously these days when you got PlayStation 1, and then we got the PlayStation. Let's remake the PlayStation 1 in a slightly different shape and call it the PlayStation 2.
It wasn't really done, was it, with consoles until Sega started doing it, I think. I mean,
well, it was more like what was obviously they did the redesign, but
and the home computers would get new versions, wouldn't they? Like Spectrum Plus One and all that stuff.
Yeah, they always had sort of slight improvements and stuff, and then you get the 500 Plus and then the Amiga 600, but it always felt a little bit like now it almost sort of seems silly. I imagine if you had the Xbox One. Oh no, you got the Xbox One 2, the Xbox One 3.
Yeah, exactly, and it's expected now.
It tends to have either some sort of letter on the end, or Pro, or it's called the Slim, or the Super Slim, or the.
Or just put a one letter at the end, like S or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let's. I was sort of thinking, do you want to have a spec off?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I'm going to bring up Wikipedia.
So I can throw a couple of things. I mean, the first thing. That's an obvious thing is the color palette of both of them. Now,
okay.
The Super Nintendo can do 256 colors on screen, and the Mega Drive can do 64. Now, that probably is more of an advantage when you're trying to do sort of photorealistic graphics. Whereas kind of the cartoony graphics that were kind of the norm and were only what those consoles were kind of designed to do, I don't think it's such a big jump between two of them. You only tend to really notice lots of color in things like Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island. But
then if you think about, you know, Super Mario World, I think Yoshi's Island was really sort of next step up in graphics wise. Though I did prefer Super Mario World. Personally, it's the number of colors on screen. If I'm thinking about it correctly, surely there's less than 64 colors on that screen.
It's 64, yeah. And they use tricks sometimes to do more. I mean, I find that the difference is the most stark if you compare like Mortal Kombat 2 on the Super Nintendo to the Mega Drive version. There's a huge difference then. But again, that's because they're trying to make things that look like real things. Like obviously the characters are digitized actors. So more colors makes it more look better. So that's probably the best example if you wanted to compare side by side. Whereas something like Street Fighter 2 or like, you know, Sonic or something. I mean, it's a bit like Sonic the Hedgehog. Put it next to Mario World, and you wouldn't really be able to tell which one is displaying more colors than the other. I don't think. So I don't think it's. I think it's that the colors on screen thing. I think is. I probably think that's probably trumpeted more than it deserves to be. I think it has to be very specific scenarios when it works. And in terms of 16-bit gaming, you could throw lots of colours at stuff, but the sort of games that were being made at that time didn't really need hundreds or thousands of colours. It was kind of just a bonus if you could get that. But the SNES, you know, based on the actual figures, it does win that. But I don't think it really makes that much of a difference in terms of, you know, of real life. So yeah, the SNES wins on that, but I don't think it's a big victory. Really, it's not a big gap.
No, and sort of thinking back, I mean, there's plenty of really colourful games. Take Sonic for example. That's an extremely colourful game.
Yeah,
and
compare like Contra Road Corps on the Mega Drive to Contra 3. And you're not going to be looking, oh my God, there's so fewer colours on the Mega Drive version. You know?
Exactly. So, well, I mean that's how I feel. I don't think it's really sort of a big issue.
I think if you compare like the Amiga to the Super Nintendo, I think then there's a big difference. Probably helps that there's a lot of games that are shared between the two, like, you know, like Pinball Dreams and Chaos Engine and Speedball. Actually, Speedball isn't on the Super Nintendo, but there are a lot of Amiga ports on the Super Nintendo, as there is on the Mega Drive. But especially something like Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga, you'll notice even that's cartoon type, you know, sort of anime graphics, because 32 colors is a lot more limiting than even 64. So there is a stark difference even on your normal kind of cartoony platformer games. So yeah, but yeah, again, it's kind of it's just sort of subjective, but that one isn't a huge thing where you can really, you know, you can hold one console up over the other. Because
what how I understand it is it's almost like, you know, we always talk about blast processing, and it's a bit of a sort of ridiculous term that it came out of a marketing department, but there is a little bit of truth behind it, that the Mega Drive ran faster. Yeah, so I think the SNES was just over 3 megahertz, and the Mega Drive was 7. So that's quite. I mean, obviously nowadays when something's like, you know, 2.9 gigahertz, and then another computer's like 3.01 gigahertz, that's not so much of a big jump in processing power. They can pretty much do the same stuff without you being, oh my God, one's slower, so much slower than the other. And there's other factors as well. There's RAM and, you know, hard drive access times and graphics cards when all that stuff comes into play. But in those days when, you know, 1 or 2, like an extra megahertz was like a big difference. It was between a shooter, like a shmup, like completely grinding to a halt when there's a lot of stuff on screen, to running smoothly. And actually a game that I've weirdly sort of had a bit of a run of comparing different versions. I was playing International Superstar Soccer Deluxe, which a lot of people forget has a Mega Drive version.
and the Super Nintendo version. Now, the Super Nintendo version is probably what people would say is the best version. It's the original one. But there's a lot of slowdown in it. If you get a lot of players on screen at once, like from a corner or something going on in midfield, there's a lot of players. There is some slowdown. But the Mega Drive version, which is just a port of the Super Nintendo, there isn't really any slowdown at all. It runs perfectly fine constantly. I don't think it actually slows down at any point. And games like, obviously on the Super Nintendo, you've got like Gradius 3. And on the Mega Drive, you've got Eliminate Down and Musha and Thunder Force. I think a SNES would really struggle to really do those games at all. Some people will argue that it shouldn't have had Gradius 3, really, not without although some people say it helps when it slows down because it makes it a bit easier. But yeah, it's a good point. And I think Ghouls and Ghosts as well has a bit of slowdown on the SNES versus the Mega Drive. So yeah, that is kind of a tangible difference, isn't it, that you could really feel.
But I think also is where the SNES, you probably not like me for saying this, was actually leaps and bounds better than the Mega Drive was when it came to the Mode 7 graphics. So when you had games like F-Zero, Mario Kart, Pilot Wings. When I remember seeing those, I was like, oh wow, you can go anywhere here. You're flying around, you're in a virtual world, and obviously in reality you weren't. But like, things like that. That's when it actually looks at me like, oh, actually, this is the next generation of gaming. This is, and I would
say that combined with the sprite scaling as well, which is weirdly something that Sega were quite famous for and kind of pioneered with like Outrun and like Space Harrier and Afterburner. They didn't really try and make an attempt to put any of that stuff into the Mega Drive. Obviously, there was like an Afterburner port and a Space Harrier and Outrun on like the Mega Drive, but it didn't use sprite scaling. It kind of just had different versions of all the sprites at different sizes, and it would just kind of load the one that was appropriate for the distance that the object was at. And whereas a Super Nintendo could actually have a single sprite that would be able to scale up perfectly, just have that one sprite that would get stretched up and distorted and everything. That was cool stuff, yeah. And you would really struggle to do something like Pilot Wings, especially on the Mega Drive. I mean, there are examples on the Mega Drive of games that do kind of do that kind of stuff. You've got Street Racer.
I was about to say that, yeah, Street Racer is an example.
Yeah.
But it was, obviously, I did a little bit of research before this video, and I'm sort of thinking about, actually, I watched a video, I was going to question you on it, actually. There was a video comparing Doom on the Super Nintendo and then Doom on the Mega Drive. And I was like, Doom on the Mega Drive? Did that come out? Or obviously it's some sort of homebrew that's been done recently, or
there's Wolfenstein on the Mega Drive, if that's what you mean. I don't know what anybody ever put in. God, that'd be amazing if someone put Doom on the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
There was a Super Nintendo version of Doom, which we've actually covered before. But yeah, there's Doom on the Super. Well, there's a 32X version of Doom. Yeah,
I think that's what they must have been talking about, because it was more related to the sound.
Yeah.
So I think the sound obviously came from the Mega Drive for the 32X.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, when the sound on the Mega Drive is used well, it sounds awesome. Like any of the Sonic games, I think Street Fighter 2 sounds good. The music on like the first Mortal Kombat. There's a ton of games that you could say, and any Sega developed game like Outrun's got really good sound.
They all had a kind of, you could tell if it was Mega Drive sound, for example, it would almost sound sort of like a rock band, or
very, very, very metallic sounding.
Yeah, exactly. It sounded like someone thrashing away on a guitar, where maybe little sort of chirpy little sounds maybe sounded better on the Super Nintendo.
I would say that the Super Nintendo sounded more like real music. like real life, like instruments, because it was using samples, so you could just sample an instrument sound and then just arrange that into a song, and it'll sound like a real thing. So it could do things like trumpets and like orchestral sounding stuff, whereas the Mega Drive couldn't really do that at all, and have it sound good. But the Mega Drive was more chiptune sounding, but sort of very advanced chiptune sounding. So there were very different styles of music. Personally, I think the Amiga is better than both of them, because when you've got like amazing Amiga music like Xenon 2 or something, it's just, I don't think either of the Super Nintendo or the Mega Drive can match that. But they've got more channels, so you don't really often have something like a game that would have to cut out. It'd have a channel get cut out by the sound effects, which is something you might have on the Amiga. But yeah. I would probably say the SNES has better sound potential, but the Mega Drive has some really good, like anything by Yuzo Koshiro sounds amazing, and I don't know if that would translate well to a Super Nintendo. And it probably sound a bit naff. So Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, they all have great soundtracks that you could listen to just away from the game. So probably on paper, yeah. Again, you would probably say the SNES has better sound, but again, not a big difference.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. There were some different sounds, weren't they? They were just different.
I mean, Doom is a good example because the 32X Doom, the music's terrible. They didn't make good use of it at all, and the SNES sounds great. It sounds better than the PC, really, version of it, the original DOS version on the PC. So yeah. And then we can go to something like probably the variety of actually one thing is the controller.
Yeah. Now,
what to me, on that?
People right. Okay. I think we've got to where it's equal is the Super Nintendo pad to the Mega Drive 6-button. I like the Mega Drive 6-button pad. And then that compares just as well to the Super Nintendo pad, but the Super Nintendo pad is my favorite. And but the original 3-button Mega Drive pad, I don't know. I just, it feels right to play Mega Drive games on, but I never had a warmth to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point. Like the Super Nintendo is obviously, the controller layout is brilliant because it's basically used on every console now to this day. 4 face buttons in a diamond kind of shape. I mean, just really easy to roll your thumb between 2 or 3 of the buttons.
Yeah,
you need to do like a lot of twitchy games, which is like your Marios and all that sort of stuff. Whereas the Mega Drive, because they're all in a row, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. And then you've got the 6-button pad. But, I mean, funny enough, like the example that I said about International Superstar Soccer Deluxe, that is a game that was designed for the Super Nintendo pad. So the button layout is really good for that. And then I want to jump to the Mega Drive version. Oh, you've got, enough buttons with a 6-button pad to do everything you could do. It's more difficult because it's just so different having all the buttons in a row. But then again,
it looks the same when the button's in the wrong place. That's a nightmare.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a head screw to kind of get used to the new layout, but you can do that, and I can play it fine now. But then there's games like Street Fighter 2 where the Mega Drive pad is just better than the Super Nintendo pad because you need 6 face buttons for that, and probably Mortal Kombat as well. Although it's good to have the block button on an L&R. But yeah, any kind of a beat 'em up, I think you need 6 face buttons. So yeah, probably the SNES. God, the SNES is winning them all at the moment. But again, the SNES wins, but you can't argue it really because it is the default button layout to this day.
Yeah, it's a bit of an iconic controller, and in the same way, so is the Mega Drive one. It
is really.
Let's say you play in Streets of Rage or something like that, it feels right to play it with that, and but I think you've got to say that the Super Nintendo pad is way more innovative.
I prefer the D-pad on the Mega Drive, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think sometimes people overanalyze how much they prefer different D-pads, but
I think I prefer like being able to roll your sort of, especially for like again Street Fighter 2, like being able to roll your thumb around on a circular pad. I find that easier than just a cross shape. You can still do it. It doesn't flow quite as nicely, and I find it's probably your thumbs get quite so tired with those sort of pads because they're not so sort of harshly angled. I guess they don't dig into your sort of the area where your thumb sort of hits the controller, the D-pad the most. The best Mega Drive pad is the third version, or it's probably like the second version of the 6-button pad that never came out in the UK. Basically, you got it with the Genesis 3.
Okay.
When it never came out over here. It's a really good pad. It's slightly smaller than the regular 6-button, but it's got a really awesome D-pad, and it's got a turbo switch.
Okay.
So again, scrolling beat 'em ups or shoot or shmups, which there is a lot of on the Mega Drive. You've got your sore, thumbs. A turbo switch is great, and this is an official Sega controller as well, which is great. Obviously, it's going to be awesome. So yeah, if you're interested in Sega controllers, look up that one because obviously they're pretty common in America. You can grab one on eBay.
Okay.
Yeah,
what would you say? Which console has the better games?
Well, if you like walking simulators, or as they're commonly known as RPGs, you might argue that the Super Nintendo is more specialized in that.
I do love turn-based combat.
Yeah, you like hitting something, standing back, waiting for the other guy to hit you, and then they stand back, and then you do it. And when it's done, you go and walk around for a bit.
Yeah,
you love that for 100 hours. For 100 hours.
Yeah, and then some completely inane story which makes no sense because you can't remember something from 100 hours ago.
Yeah. So as you can tell, I'm not the biggest RPG fan. There's a handful of RPGs that I like. Zelda Ocarina of Time. I like Zelda 2 on the NES, which is the most un-Zelda-y of all the Zeldas. I like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, which is kind of an RPG, and then like Skyrim, and Oblivion, which are probably more action orientated than they are RPG. I mean, they're probably more in common with Grand Theft Auto than they do with Final Fantasy. Never played Final Fantasy to any big extent, so for me, and the games that I like sports games. The sports games are mostly crap on the Super Nintendo. Because the Mega Drive version will often run better for starters, like we've just been saying about ISS Deluxe. That's obviously good on the Super Nintendo as well. But any of the FIFAs, they're just awful on the Super Nintendo. NHL,
it was almost designed for it, wasn't it? And
yeah, I think having that 7 megahertz chip helps a lot with a lot of sprites on screen, which those sort of games demand. Scrolling beat 'em ups, I friggin' love them. Obviously, there's some of those on the SNES. You've got Final Fight, and Turtles in Time. But on the Mega Drive, you've got Streets of Rage. All 3 of them are awesome. You've got Golden Axe. You've got even quirky ones like The Punisher, which is a really good scrolling beat 'em up.
Obviously, what's it called? Comic Zone.
Comic Zone, yeah, that's a really good scrolling beat 'em up. Really hard, but really good. Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist, which is basically Turtles in Time.
I think we're all going here very sort of pro Mega Drive, but everyone's probably screaming out, "What about Super Mario World,
Chrono Cross?"
Chrono Trigger maybe, on the Super Nintendo.
WWF's WrestleMania, the arcade game.
I wasn't going to mention that one, to be honest. And the games like Zelda, A Link to the Past.
And you've got all of the Konami games that are on there, like Castlevania 4 is brilliant. But again, I probably would argue that there's a Mega Drive equivalent to that. There's Castlevania Bloodlines, or the New Generation, as we called it. Contra 3 is awesome on the Super Nintendo, but then it's quite a bit different actually. You got Contra Hardcore on the Mega Drive, which is again a Contra game. And in terms of I really like run and gun games, and there's not really a lot on the Super Nintendo. Contra 3, but
would you say Metroid is a run and gun?
No, that's more like now you'd say it's a Metroidvania.
Yeah.
it's kind of a dungeon crawler, but a side-scrolling one, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably I wouldn't be able to sort of name an equivalent to that on. To be fair, on the Mega Drive, you have to sort of talk about Castlevania Symphony of the Night, really, for something that's a lot like that. And that wouldn't that would be until the PlayStation, but yeah, I mean, like run and guns, you've got like Gunstar Heroes, you've got there's elements of that in Dynamite Heady, and a lot of the like the cross-platform sort of Disney games. I would say the Mega Drive is the better version for the most part.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of games that just don't really exist on the Mega Drive on the Super Nintendo.
I think the Mega Drive was one of its pros was it was very easy to port. I'll say very easy. I've got no idea if it was. It was very easy to port Amiga games. So you got things like Populous. Did that? I think that came on the Super Nintendo. You got Populous. You got Megalomania.
Yeah,
Speedball. You got things like this. Absolutely loads of games which would just seem like, oh yeah. Just stick that on the Mega Drive on the Mega Drive as well. It had the same processor.
Yeah, and a lot of those
as the Amiga.
Yeah, a lot of those I kind of played both versions of them, like in terms of the console
Skid Marks.
versions. Yeah, Super Skid Marks. I would say they ran better on the Mega Drive because obviously you're having a bit of trouble trying to get them to work on a processor that's half the speed of the Amiga and the Mega Drive. They're a lot closer, and they both use 68K CPUs. The Amiga and the Mega Drive, so that helped with that. And things like all the EA games, I mean, a lot of them just didn't exist on the Super Nintendo. I don't just mean like FIFA, but I mean like you got like Desert Strike, though I probably would say those games look a bit better on the Mega Drive because it's got a higher resolution. It does like 320 by 240 is the standard resolution on a Mega Drive game, whereas it's like 256 by 224. So you're not quite as much detail. Not a big difference, but there is a difference. Things like Road Rash, there isn't a Super Nintendo version of it. The Immortal. There's a lot of flight sims on the Mega Drive, like LHX Attack Copter and F-22 Interceptor. Okay, they're not brilliant games, but they don't really exist there isn't really any at all, apart from maybe Pilot Wings on the Super Nintendo. And obviously you've got, if you like Sega arcade games, there's none of them on the Super Nintendo. So Golden Axe and Afterburner and Outrun. I'd probably say the Mega Drive might have slightly better racing games. Also you've got Mario Kart, and probably Top Gear is the only real like non-kart based racing game on the SNES that's good. If anybody, feel free to correct me on that. But on the Mega Drive, you've got like you've got the Lotus series ported from the Amiga again. I would say Street Racer's a bit better on the Mega Drive than the SNES. And obviously, I'd probably would say like other multi-platform games. Like I think I prefer Street Fighter 2 on the Mega Drive to the Super Nintendo versions.
It was faster, wasn't it?
It was faster, and obviously the controller's better. And I think it looks a bit better because you've got the higher resolution. Sound-wise, not so good, but I think everything else is a bit better. And although Capcom weren't brilliant at supporting the Mega Drive, I think Street Fighter 2 was the first Sega Capcom game, actually.
Well, I think there was always sort of those unfair agreements between publishers and Nintendo. So okay, if you want to put your game on Nintendo, right, you can't put that game onto other systems. So that's when they went down the route of, okay, well, the Mega Drive will get Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then they made Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but Championship Edition is basically Turbo and Championship Edition and Champion Edition. And then I think like things like Mortal Kombat 3 and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 are better on the Mega Drive. They've got especially 3, and it's got more voice samples in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, more backgrounds in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I think the moves are a bit easier to pull off with the Mega Drive controller. And also things like, I think that a lot of the times, like Super Street Fighter 2 has got has actually a larger 40 megabit cartridge on the Mega Drive, whereas I think it was 32 on the SNES. So I think it's got probably a few more frames of animation and a bit more speech and sound effects and things like that. And it's probably because Sega probably gave people, like publishers, cheaper deals on cartridge production, and sort of said, look, we can give you a 40 megabit cart for the same price that Nintendo do a 32, you know, the little sneaky ways that try and one-up each other. But then there's things like, you know, special chip games. I think the SNES did a bit more with that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's only one I can really think of for the Mega Drive, and obviously that's Virtual Racing. Yeah. And, you know, yeah, that was good. But then on the Super Nintendo, you probably know, but there was probably about 6 or 7 different chips that, you know, some just, this one just does more graphic, you know, better graphics. This one does, you know, 3D, was it 3DFX chip? No.
Super FX, yeah.
Super FX chip.
Yeah.
You had that one. Then you had sort of,
there were sort of
other
three.
chips.
There's sort of 3 that I think are the most commonly used. I think there's the SA1 chip, which is basically the CPU of the Super Nintendo, but bumped to 10 megahertz.
Okay.
In the cartridge. So that helped with like stopping slowdown in games where they probably put that chip in there because they thought, well, this game will run regularly, but it'll just slow down to buggery. So maybe if we just pop this chip in there and it'll boost it to 10 megahertz. I think Kirby, a lot of the Kirby games on the Super Nintendo have that SA1 chip. There's the DSP chip, which is used for like Super Mario Kart and a handful of other games that have a lot of Mode 7 type stuff going on. And there's also, the Super FX. I think there's 11 games that use that. The only ones that are really any good are probably Yoshi's Island, Doom, and Star Fox. Star Wing, as it was for us. Whereas the Mega Drive, basically, that was Virtua Racing. And it's a shame because they could have made a lot more. It was better than the Super FX chip. It was a lot more advanced. I mean, look how fast Virtua Racing runs compared to any Super FX chip game. But obviously, it was more expensive. But then I guess there's an argument that you've got the Mega CD and the Mega CD and the 32X, which, you know, have their own extra complete libraries. Obviously, you have to fork out the cash to get those.
I think to bring those into it is, I think that's a little bit. Yeah, it makes it obviously the Mega Drive a better machine.
You probably have to put that into like an accessories or expandability round, wouldn't you? Really, if you think that's fair.
I think basically you're right there, and I would say that. Okay, it's got those, but that's not really, you know, it's a real reason to sort of give the Mega Drive extra points or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue that obviously that means but mainly with the Mega CD, I think you've opened up an entire new bunch of game library. Like, you know, you can't get Snatcher on the Super Nintendo or Night Trap or, you know, and it means it got a better version of Final Fight, you know, than the Super Nintendo and Sonic CD, and it added the Mode 7. They didn't increase the color palette, which I thought was a bit silly, but they added the Mode 7 in there, although I think Batman Returns uses that well, and like Battle Core and Thunderhawk. They use really good Mode 7 type stuff that the Mega Drive couldn't do on its own. I kind of feel like that was a worthwhile. We've talked about the Mega CD already quite recently, but I kind of feel that was a worthwhile upgrade if they just maybe used that. They just stuck with that and didn't do the 32X, and perhaps just did the SVP chip and the Virtua Racing. Maybe release that as a standalone for 50 quid or something. And then they could have done like a watered down Virtua Fighter and Star Wars Arcade and stuff. That would have been cool. They should have just done that instead of the 32X. And just, you know, add the Mega CD as the other thing. So yeah, accessories wise, obviously the Mega Drive I think would win that if you're willing to fork out the cash. And in game library, because I'm not an RPG fan, I would probably say the Mega Drive just edges it. There's a lot of SNES games that I love, like the Mario games, obviously. But yeah, for me, it'd be the Mega Drive, and probably for you, I'm guessing Super Nintendo.
I think I would say the Super Nintendo, but I can see why the Mega Drive's got some great games on it. There's no doubt about it, really. So I think the idea of this discussion is not really to come to an agreement, which one's better, because it's all down to what the individual thinks, really. And
I think it's clear you need to have both of them in your life now. There's no excuses; they're so cheap. Exactly.
Get both of them and
get yourself an EverDrive, a Mega EverDrive for the Mega Drive, and you've got yourself every game that you could ever want. And get yourself an FX Pack Pro, as they're called now, for the Super Nintendo, and you've got every Super Nintendo game. Get yourself an old Super Nintendo from a PlayNation and a Mega Drive. Mod it to 60 hertz, or get one that's already been done, so you're not getting god awful PAL nonsense that we had to put up with. And you're good to go. Or just get a Mega Drive Mini and a Super Nintendo Mini.
Yeah, exactly.
You're good to go. But one last question.
Yes.
To you, Stu. So, do you actually collect either of them at this point in time?
What, Mega Drive or Super Nintendo?
Yeah, collect for them.
No, I'd say probably not. No, because for one, Super Nintendo, for example, most of the games are on the Switch at the moment.
Yeah.
So I can play them on that, and I'm a little bit limited with my setup. But I've still got a good collection of games for both of them, and if I see a game I want, I'll pick it up and I'll set up the console and I'll
play the video games.
Yeah,
I would probably say, in terms of collecting, if we're going to have one last round of this, I would say I personally, again, this is all subjective, enjoy collecting the Mega Drive more than the Super Nintendo. I mean, there's some obvious reasons. One, it's cheaper. Because like a game like Sunset Riders, which is on the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, and they're both versions are pretty good. SNES version is slightly better, but the Mega Drive version is still really good. That's 70 quid on the Mega Drive, still expensive, but the SNES version you could easily end up spending nearly 200 quid for that same game in a tatty box. So there's that.
Exactly. I just think it's the Mega Drive is so much more accessible, and yes, there are expensive games for it.
Exactly, and the boxes are better as well.
And the boxes are better, and they seem to sort of obviously last much longer because they're plastic boxes and not cardboard. Which was terrible idea.
Being the more popular system in the UK, there's just a lot more Mega Drive games floating around. So collecting wise, you can easily build yourself up a good collection. There's very few £100 plus games, although it's probably got, like, again, we talked about it loads on the podcast, but it's probably got the most valuable game in existence if you ever wanted to go after Lakers v Celtics. But that isn't going to pop up on eBay or in CEX really very often. So yes, really great to collect for. I would say the Mega Drive is the better option. Plus, it's cheaper now to get your Mega CDs and your 32Xs and go after those collections as well than it would have been in the 90s. So you've got whole extra bunches of things rabbit holes you could dive down that the Super Nintendo doesn't really have. So yeah, that was just a final little thought from me. So Stu, where can you find us on the interwebs?
Well, we're everywhere really. ConsoleShock.net is the website. We're on Twitter as Console Shock. We're on Facebook as Console Shock. And if you search us on iTunes, Stitcher, I think we're on Google Podcasts or Google Play, you can find us there as well. So
there's like a couple of new ones now. Like some people are going on about Downcast and like an Overcast. A lot of things called cast.
Overcast.
Was it Dreamcast? Yeah.
I was going to say, if you know a couple more, Trev, or anyone listening,
try and get us on there. Yeah.
Well, you need to have the website. Well, yeah, but tell me, and I can.
Dreamcast. It's on Dreamcast. I think you put it on the Dreamcast. That's a Dreamcast, isn't it?
Okay.
Dreamcast.
It's on the Dream. Yeah. We're not on the Dreamcast.
That's a shame. Do you not want to be on the Dreamcast?
No. Yes, I do.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice? It'd be immortalised. What would that be? You just put it on a disc and put it in your Dreamcast and listen to it through that.
Yeah, basically, just we could actually release.
That's just an audio book, isn't it? I guess.
audio CDs. Do CDs play on the Dreamcast?
Yeah, that's what we should do. There we go. We can.
Yeah, we should release our episodes as CDs.
Box sets. That's where the money is.
And you know, and you can listen to them on your Dreamcast.
The best of Console Shock. 8-disc super audio CD. Yeah. Well, watch out for that, guys. We might be doing that soon. So yes, we're all hopefully going to be on a few more. We'll see what there's any ones that we need to get our podcast on, and we'll be on there. And we've got our website as well, of course, and we're on Twitter, aren't we, Stu?
Yeah, I've mentioned that already.
Oh, I was paying attention, paying about as much attention as the average listener probably does to most of our babbling.
Basically.
Anyway, thanks, Stu, for joining me for the 60th time.
Not a problem. And hopefully we're going to speed things up a little bit with podcasts.
Well, we've got another one. We've already got designs on, haven't we, for the next couple of weeks?
Exactly. It's all sort of in the process of being organised.
So we're getting getting into the spin of things again for 2020. So so keep an eye on
the phone with Clive Mendonca, and fingers crossed we'll have Clive Mendonca on the next one.
No one knows who that is, Stu, apart from like that one person on Twitter who also supports Charlton that said they listened to us.
Yeah, well that was for him.
He might not even know who that is, but I'd be worried
if you're a Charlton fan, you know who Clive Mendonca is.
I would hope so. Didn't do much in the video game realm, I'll be honest. In FIFA, I suppose, but yeah. FIFA
Surely he was featured on a few video games.
FIFA 99, yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably it, but yeah. Anyway, enough about video games that feature Charlton. That might be an episode on its own, I think.
No, it's not.
Right.
We're not doing that one.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Goodbye yourself.
See you in the next one. Take care.
See you later.